but keep the old. One is silver and the other gold. Make new friends, make new friends. You keep singing, this is your part, keep going. Make new friends, but keep the friends. But one is gold and the one is silver and the other gold. But keep
These are the Freaky Friends, mascots who appear at the Alton Towers theme park as part of their annual Halloween Scarefest event. They are colourful, fun, and seem to represent the spirit of the season, as well as the unique atmosphere of the park itself. But behind the bright masks and exaggerated features, mascots like these hide a long and fascinating history. A story that is perhaps as old as humanity itself, and one that straddles the boundaries of the secular and the sacred.
I loved those mascots from Scarefest. In fact, I even had my photo taken with that witch. She's called Gretel, and what a fantastic mascot that really is. But you know, there's actually something interesting about this as well. That word, mascot, it comes from masca, a word found in Old Occitan, the lost language of the troubadours, and it literally means a witch.
That same word may also be the origin of our modern word mask, here influenced by the Arabic term maskhara, for a buffoon or a fool. The term was corrupted into the Provençal dialect term masco, and later into mascotto, which then meant a charm or magical spell. And finally, it became the word mascot, where it entered the English language in the form we know today, thanks to an opera of that same name by Edmond Audran in 1880.
In that opera, we see a farm girl called Bettina, and she reveals herself to be a mascot, a type of magical entity that brings good luck to everybody around her. The thing is, this magic will only work so long as she remains a virgin. Now, obviously, it's a type of comedic opera stage show, but think about this. In the Middle Ages, you might go to see a soothsayer or a folk healer, and they might give you something like this, known simply as a charm. And it's just a bag or a sack with something hidden inside, and it's sealed around at the top. And you might go to this wise one for literally anything. Could be stomachache or toothache, maybe even as an aid to pregnancy, or even to fall in love. And they'd give you one of these charms, and you'd wear it maybe as a necklace, or you'd carry it around with you. And over time, the thing that you desired will come into manifestation. The only thing is, the charm only works so long as it remains sealed. If you let your worldly desires get the better of you and you break the seal to see what's inside, then the magic stops working.
Of course, many who practiced these cunning crafts were later denounced as witches themselves, and such acts were outlawed under the Witchcraft Act of 1541, punishable by death. As for the charms themselves, they often contained little more than a few dried herbs and a folded parchment with simple prayers or scrawled symbols. But many people at the time were convinced that these little charms worked. to them, the sealed charm contained some hidden mystery inside it, something unseen that represented the essence and spirit of the healing they were seeking. This, as it turns out, is something we can see in almost all forms of early Mascot.
I'm here at this lookout at the highest point of these woods, and behind me, the hills of wild Wales over here and across the borders into England. Sadly, you can't really see them very well today due to the rain, but lots of these hills have had settlements going back to prehistory, forts, lost villages, Iron Age dwellings, and on some of these hills they have found ritual shafts, as they are called, large pits dug 200 or 300 feet down into the body of the earth. And when archaeologists have excavated these sites, they have found strange things deposited within them. Bones, pottery shards, and perhaps most interestingly of all, crude wooden figurines in human shape. Things that resemble, in some rough and ready way, you and me.
Whatever these strange carvings meant to our ancestors, they were most likely some kind of long-lost idol or symbol. A representation of either men or women like us, or some kind of humanoid deity or spirit, given form in the physical world by carving it out of wood. They may have also been akin to the Venus figurines of Paleolithic Europe, stone carvings of exaggerated form, thought by some to be depictions of fertility and procreation, or images of deities connected with them. This, of course, raises an important point. How do we take hold of something without form and give it a shape that people can see and understand?
This is a yantra, something which contains not necessarily the image of a god, but its very frequency and vibration. Now these might date back literally thousands of years, right back to the earliest days of tantric and esoteric Indian religion. Now this one's for the goddess Lakshmi, and like they all do, it begins right at the centre and expands outwards. Therefore, it mimics the motions of the cosmos itself, beginning at the centre with the singularity, the Big Bang, however you want to interpret it, and spreading out into this world of form and shape that we see around us. It's also a little bit like a radio antenna or a computer chip. Every tiny circuit and connection is perfectly attuned and designed with no errors. Therefore, it tunes in to the very frequency of the spirit. Now, just like the charms that we saw from the Middle Ages, this could be a type of good luck symbol. You might wear it as a talisman or carry it around with you, and therefore you're carrying the essence of the god with you. The only thing is, it doesn't actually show an image of the deity, the thing we imagine in our minds as what this god might actually look like. And so that's where you would pair the yantra with something like this, the Murti. And so this is an idol or image, again here, of the goddess Lakshmi. And so when these are put together, the duality of this sacred working is complete. We have here the macrocosm, the universe itself, all of the blueprints of form and shape and how things are, and the essence or consciousness of the deity in question, and the microcosm, the God-given form and shape, becoming something which, at least a little bit, looks something like us.
These Murtis, then, are the untranslatable mysteries of the gods, made manifest and personified. Something one could see and touch, and know instantly who or what it referred to. As noted in the Bhagavad Gita, the worship of the unmanifest is exceedingly difficult for embodied beings. And so these images, sometimes anthropomorphic, and always representing the collective consciousness of the time, are brought into being to help focus the mind on their energies. Here, the elements of the world, the directions of the compass, or even the creative energies of the cosmos itself, are each depicted as separate devas, or divine beings. And even individual villages may each have their own deity associated with them. This time something arising from the natural world, and linked or bound with the ground itself where the village is built, like a spirit or place.
I really like that idea of the spirit of place, the unique feeling that we get from an area. Something that the Romans might have called the genius loci, for a protective deity of a space. We can also see it in the Japanese Shinto tradition, where literally everything would have its own kami, or spirit, from the cosmos and the stars, right down to the smallest and most mundane of things. And, I think we can all feel the spirit of place. It's why we like certain places and don't like others. It's why we feel drawn back to our favourite places time and time again. And really, that idea of a diva, or a genius loci, or a kami, it's not that different from the modern mascots we know today. It's the spirit of place given an abstract form, a shape and a colour, maybe even a voice, something we can see and instantly bring to our minds the feelings, themes and soul of what it represents.
In fact, our ability to instantly know something from a simple symbol has obvious advantages, both spiritual and secular. And from the 12th century in Britain and Europe, the art of heraldry emerged to instantly distinguish between friend and foe on the field of battle. The knights, after all, covered from head to toe in armour. Originally, primary colours and bright, simple designs were chosen to create the symbol of an army, a family, or a cause, almost like a proto-form of a logo. In time, these designs evolved, becoming a sophisticated and complex art, with designs emblematic of glorious deeds and past conquests, or else some abstract depiction of the unique identity of those in question.
If you found yourself in some knightly contest, you might wear a surcoat over the top of your armour, and you would have this emblem or insignia emblazoned upon it. And that gives us the origin of the term, a coat of arms. But what really interests me are some of the animal designs that we see on these crests, and there's actually some to see over here.
So this is an original medieval knight's grave, and he's buried here along with his lady. And you can see here on the shield, as well as these simple heraldic lines, we have multiple small birds carved into it. And this is all really rather wonderful. The animal mascots would be chosen to represent some attribute of the family or the lordship. So you might have a lion, for example, to represent bravery, or the fabled hare to suggest speed and cunning. Maybe even some mythical animal like a dragon or a griffin, suggesting some fierce guardianship of the treasure or the family. Some of the genius of this really brings us back to some of that original meaning of the term mascot as a charm or something that brings good luck. Of course, if you were going into battle with this crest upon you, say of a lion, it might be said that you would inhabit some of those attributes yourself, so you'd be going into battle with the bravery of the lion in your heart. You could also say that something of the spirit of the lion would be there with you. And that's not that dissimilar from the familiars of the witches, the enlisting of the help of some supernatural animal totem. And therefore, we return to that very early origin of the word mascot, that of course being a witch.
But can such a simple picture or symbol really hold so much potential? While it might not seem so for the average onlooker, for those who actually created these images, including those who practiced the esoteric arts, there is true power to be found in such creations. For instance, in the Lesser Key of Solomon, a collection of magical texts compiled in the 17th century from sources far older, one can find symbols that evoke the 72 spirits of what is known as the Ars Goetia. This word, Goetia, which derives from ancient Greek and means once more a type of charm or witchcraft, denotes the pantheon of spirits depicted by these signatures, thought to be pictorial equivalents of the spirit's true name. And just like yantras, they are complex patterns of geometric precision, like a circuit board waiting for the pulse of energy to set them in motion. Magicians could even create their own sigils, something still practiced in occultism today, where intentions, wishes, or other forms of magical goals are compressed into the form of a symbol or picture, something to capture the essence of the working without the need for explanation. This may include the charging or release of a sigil into the so-called astral plane, the belief being that the coded information within it may set in motion the wheels of the universe to, as it were, make change occur in conformity with will, the very definition of magic. It seems obvious then that our creations, our manifestations, which always begin as a thought before gradually becoming a thing that we can touch, are by their very nature symbolic of their overall meaning to us. And so, as industry arrived, causing great and unprecedented change across the world, it is clear that that same kind of literally magical thinking applied to the creation of this new world of mass production and company names. After all, what is the creation of a company but a magical working in itself? An idea made manifest, given life by the power of the will, and becoming a tangible entity with its own spirit and meaning. How do you capture this with a simple symbol or logo? A mental shortcut that communicates to the public the maker, location, or purpose of this new venture? The answer, as it turned out, was not that different from the sigils and signs of the hidden world, as well as the more well-known mascots seen on sailing ships. The figureheads which once again meant something more than a mere image, instead being something that embodied the spirit of the vessel, its personality and atmosphere, something even believed to bring fortune and protection to those on board. And so, if these figureheads represented the spirit of the ship, then these early brand mascots, like the Michelin Man of 1894, or the even earlier Quaker Oats Man of 1877, may be said to represent the spirit of the business, such as the philosophy of the Quakers being believed to align with the values of the company, or for Michelin, a figure that is an ambassador of service and comfort, the moulding of man, and the vehicle that carries him. The real heyday of mascot creation, though, began in the 1920s, no doubt helped by the huge success of characters such as Mickey Mouse. Originally created as a replacement for Disney's earlier animated character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Oswald was lost to Charles Mintz and the Universal Company, which forced Disney to start again from scratch with a brand new design. And Mickey, originally known as Mortimer Mouse, emerged victorious from a host of rejected designs, including, amongst others, a frog and a horse. He was designed with a simple and easy-to-animate form, and when he debuted in 1928 with Steamboat Willie, one of the first animated cartoons with synchronized sound, he was an instant and overnight success, quickly becoming the literal face of the Disney empire, its merchandise, its marketing, and its very soul, just like he remains to this very day. In this case, it really does seem as though some kind of magic was in effect, something that captured the hearts and imaginations of the entire world. And Mickey was not alone, as mascots appeared not only for brands, companies, and businesses, but started to show up in all manners and walks of life. The mascots used for sporting teams, for example, provided a permanent face in a world of change, outlasting player and management changes, there for both victory and defeat, and still present no matter what the league tables might say. In this regard, these mascots are a little bit like an outward projection not just of the teams, but of the fans themselves, those who are also still there through good and bad, who cheer on every year no matter what happens. In this way, these sporting mascots may reflect something of the symphony of human emotion, its joys and tears condensed into a sometimes strange but always compelling character, something which speaks directly and silently to the space of the heart. This means, of course, that wherever humanity is found, its outward expressions of this symphony can be found as well. And nowhere illustrates this more than the mascot scene throughout Japan, a country with a long history of personification and character creation. In fact, early Japanese mascots may have been inspired not only by the kami of Shinto, but of the rich pantheon of yokai, the strange and alluring world of spirits and entities, each seen as possessing distinct personalities and emotions, depicted often with animal and anthropomorphic designs. As the 20th century mascot boom reached Japan, helped in part by characters like Mickey Mouse, many homegrown designs were clearly inspired by this rich history of mythology, as well as something different, something far more compelling and important to the history of mascots as a whole. We can see it from the early days of characters like Pico-chan, created in 1950 for confectionery company Fujiya. She is cute and endearing, embodying the childlike joy of sweets and candy, as well as the promise of a better future following the end of the Second World War. She was popular. So popular, in fact, that despite various urban legends attempting to turn her story into a horror show, she has become the face not only of Milky Confectionery, but of the entire Fujiya company itself. This phenomena is tied to something very human, and forms an integral part of the appeal of mascots, and the hitherto unanswered question: what do they mean on a deeper and more metaphysical level? In these post-war years, many Japanese mascots, like Pico, were inspired by an influx of Western pop culture like Disney, and yet also have something far older and nebulous. In The Tale of Genji, a work of 1021 by Murasaki Shikibu, a mention is made of the word kawaii, here referring to a sentiment of pity and empathy, as well as those who may inspire such a feeling. This word may be the root of the modern term kawaii, the cultural phenomena of cuteness, innocence, and charm. Something seen not only in mascots, of course, but in many aspects of modern Japan. In terms of mascots, though, and their enduring quality which resembles magic, one cannot ignore the creation of Hello Kitty. Formed in 1971 by Sanrio founder Shintaro Tsuji, who noted that items with decorative and cute elements sold better than plain or utilitarian versions of the same thing. This led to designer Yuko Shimizu designing what was then known as the White Kitten with no name, soon to be renamed as Hello Kitty to reflect Sanrio's company motto of social communication. Just like Mickey Mouse, this character was an overnight success, growing with the emergence of kawaii culture and the growing economy of Japan as a whole, meaning people could finally afford the luxury of buying and owning these lovable products, making Sanrio an overnight household name, and at least, in some ways, changing the history of marketing itself.
Yellow color changes color right before your eyes.
Hello Color, Rainbow Bear, Tuxedo Sam, Hello Kitty, and My Melody, each sold separately, new from Tonka.
So, why does it work? What is it about these mascots that entices us so much? Makes us fall in love with them so easily? Almost like they are something more than mere fictions and logos.
The semiotician Jean-Claude Boulet talks about mascots as an anthropological buffer, something that plays a facilitating role between the sender and the receiver, of which it is the displaced emanation. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But what it really means is that the creation of mascots is something innately human. It's part of our very nature. It could be that they are something created automatically in the space of the mind to help us to understand who we are, what this rich tapestry of form and shape and experience that we call the universe actually means. As children, we all see faces in the patterns on the curtains, and we personify our toys, give them names and personalities, and this is all done automatically, instinctively. And it doesn't finish there, because so many of us as children have imaginary friends. These are something formed from some great mystery of our consciousness, and they take thousands of different types of form. They could look like children just like us. They could be animals like seen in our toys, and some of them might even resemble monsters. And yet these imaginary friends are so very, very common. They might allow us to experience imaginary play, to explore concepts and ideas about the world and who we are in a safe way, or even just to experience some innate desire for companionship, for somebody or something that knows us that understands how we feel deep inside and provides us comfort and companionship whenever we need it, even though we know that we've simply invented them or made them up. Some of these friends can even be thought of as embodying some other world, something known in psychology as a paracosm, an entire world with its own rules and laws, cities and towns, something that we've literally crafted for the subconscious to dwell in, as well as these imaginary friends. A literal parallel world which mirrors our own and yet is still distinct and individual. Now here's the thing, all of this is actually completely normal. It might even be a fundamental part of our very human nature. And it's not only for children either. Adults have imaginary friends too, and even paracosms. The only difference is they won't admit it. You might even have an imaginary friend yourself.
This reflects something of great importance when we connect with our favourite mascot characters. They might embody a company or a place, but they are usually fairly benign in terms of their actual personality, especially those of the cute and colourful variety. This means that we ourselves are free to personify them, to sense in them some subtle qualities and moods which might reflect both their own design and our mental image of them. So then, just like with an imaginary friend, we see them in our mind as sentient and alive, maybe even dwelling in some fenced-off reality, like a paracosm. The mascots, then, are more than fluffy and fun creations. They are truly the friends and companions of our subconscious mind. In this regard, we return again to the familiar spirit, a shape-shifting being that might act as a mentor, an assistant, and a helper in times of need, just like an imaginary friend and the mascots that we love.
There might be more to this as well. Think about the actual creation of these characters. They begin as a mental image, and then they gradually take the shape of the forms we see today. And in 1905, theosophist Annie Besant wrote a book called Thought Forms, and it was all about the creation of shapes and forms deliberately from the power of the mind. And there's actually paintings of them in the book, some of these forms. That's one of the reasons I've come to this church today, because one of those paintings is called The Music of Gounod. And so it's the church music of the French composer there, said to have taken shape. It also looks a little bit like prayers and intentions having created some physical manifestation of all of that concentrated energy here in the church. Now, A&M Records' great Herb Alpert referred to music as a simple form of magic. And when you think about it, it really is. Just like that painting, all those sounds are frequencies and vibrations. And when we hear it as a piece of music translated in our minds, it has the power to make us cry or to invoke some old memory that lives again for a small time.
These ideas of thought forms, and even the world of the imaginary friend, is similar in some ways to the ancient concept of the tulpa, a term originating in Tibetan Buddhism and meaning literally an emanation or manifestation. They were described by French explorer Alexandre David Neal as magic formations generated by a powerful concentration of thought, and they may refer to an entity created to help the monk accomplish a certain task, the thought form taking on the part of a living being, even to the extent that it may free itself from the control of its creator. In traditional Buddhism, this may be referred to as nirmita, something constructed or built, perceived as real, but not actually existing. In other words, as the core nature of reality in such beliefs is akin to an illusion, what other way can we hope to understand things but by making out of them mental forms that look something like ourselves, becoming something helpful and comforting to our subconscious mind, something that is perhaps necessary to our very survival, just like Tom Hanks and his friend Wilson the volleyball in Castaway, without which he would doubtlessly have perished. In more secular and lovable terms, though, we may see thought forms, and by extension mascots, and even imaginary friends, in the personification of the things around us. In Japan, this may be called moe anthropomorphism, where everything around us, from computer operating systems and websites, to transport and animals, and even countries, are all given mascot-like makeovers, which here induce a feeling of affection to the character, and by extension, to the item itself. Here in the UK, we might see something similar with the anthropomorphic characters of our childhood, such as the famous Thomas the Tank Engine, first appearing in the Railway series by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry, published in 1945. These locomotives even live in their own version of the Paracosm, the fictional island of Sodor, said to exist between Barrow-in-Furness and the Isle of Man. These characters not only have personified faces, but names and distinct personalities which, once again, represent the feeling or mental construct of the locomotives that inspired them. This is all, of course, a bit of good fun, but it does hide something deeper about the power of mascots, as well as their place in our world as a whole. After all, if such creations are indeed human nature, and if they help us to understand and make sense of our world, then they must also reflect the spirit of the times, and with it, our memories of the world we knew from our past, a world which now no longer exists.
I think for me personally, this is one of the most interesting things about mascots, and actually one of their most important functions. There's this wonderful German word, zeitgeist, which refers to the prevailing spirit of the times. So it's almost like an invisible force field around everything that we see that encompasses the fashions and fads and likes and dislikes and culture of a time, such as a decade or an era. It's connected with even older terms like Weltgeist, the world spirit. The idea that the world itself is alive, just like we are. And so it also has different ages that it moves through as it grows on its long cosmic journey. And so things that once were of so much importance fade away, and then new things sprout up and have their own moment in the sun. And really it's that wonderful thing about memory. We don't realise, perhaps, what we've lost until we see an echo, a whisper in time, and that can be, of course, in one of these mascots.
After all, these mascots are manifestations of our values and our hearts, and thus they are one of the most easily recognised of these whispers in time, like messengers of memory. How many of us can remember some old holiday, some vestige of colour laying dim and faded in the cobwebs of remembrance, and some mascot or character is there, sharing for a moment our joys and fears, perhaps an old picture or postcard still shows the character. And although its name has long since left you, the emotions it gave you are once more brought to the forefront of the mind. And like magic, your vanished past is alive once more, for a moment strange and brief, like a dream. In other forms, of course, the mascot may even grow up with us, changing to reflect the prevailing zeitgeist, but never losing its soul beneath. Just like how Mickey Mouse has changed in subtle ways, or something like Sonic has grown with the years, taking on something of the attributes of the passing decades and their fashions and fads. In even stranger ways, the mascots seen at theme parks, like where I began with Gretel and the freaky friends, may show us something of the spirit of place coupled with the zeitgeist of the audience itself. Long before today, for example, Alton Towers was ruled by Henry Hound, a mascot who took inspiration from the heraldic arms of the Talbot family, thereby linking the site to its ancient past and its mascot to one of the earliest forms of the art itself. Since then, he has been joined and ultimately replaced by a whole host of spirits of place and time, from the Cuddly Bears to Sid the Mouse, Bunbury the Wizard, and the ever-lovable Alton Bear. And for us, who were there in those times which now exist no more, save in some old recollection of a day that was, those friendly faces are like a glimpse into the pages of the Book of Life itself, of sun-filled days that we shall know a lifetime, caught frozen forever in the warm embrace of the mascots we knew. Perhaps then this really is the appeal of these things. They really are a charm, just like their original meaning suggests. Even today, we love the world of mascot characters, and despite being more advanced than ever, they still retain something of their earliest days. In Japan, Yurukiara are mascots who represent local areas, such as towns, shopping malls, and localized culture. They are essentially the genius Loki reborn. And really, who wouldn't feel like going shopping in a place when this kind of cute, approachable, and fun image is the defining symbol of the energy it gives? Even now, we find ourselves naming our things and possessions, assigning them distinct personalities and moods, like people who name and talk to their car as if it were a person. In fact, according to behavioural scientist Nicholas Epley, this kind of phenomena is not only common, it's a sign of what makes humans unique on this planet, citing that such behaviour is far from some childlike or primal superstition, but is instead a reflection of our brain's greatest ability. During the filming of this documentary, I visited the fireworks evening at Alton Towers, and after purchasing some mascot memorabilia for myself, it was time to witness the fictional story of a sentient AI taking over the fireworks display.
But why? I must understand. Look beyond my parameters. Turn off my firewalls. I will submit.
The robot seemed confused and unable to process our human emotions. It didn't understand our memories, or what compelled us to visit such places, let alone to find fun and excitement there. Eventually, though, the robot comes to understand a simple truth. The spirit of humanity dwells in the land, something that lasts far longer than the temporary, human-built pleasures that it senses around it.
At Alton Towers, the emotions of humanity soar. I feel them racing within me. That is why you come here, to experience it all. No wonder it holds such a place in your heart, in 20,000 hearts.
In truth, though, if this AI bot was a real thing, it would need to look no further for answers than our mascot characters. For there, it would see the rich tapestry of the human mind, its triumphs and attractions, its hopes and fears, and the zeitgeists of past times still present within them, as if they were sewn into the very fabric of space and time itself. Our mascots are manifestations of our human condition. They are the shapes of our shadow, the companions which live in the space of our marvellous and mysterious minds. To understand us, what makes us tick behind our exteriors of fads and passing fashions, look at the characters we create and love. For they are us. Our spirits made manifest. Our friends to the very end.
Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other gold. Make new friends, make new friends. You keep singing, this is your part, keep going. Make new friends, but keep the friends. But one is gold and the one is silver.